Bloodbath, Grand Morbid Funeral. So at last, we have the new Bloodbath album. In the past 6 years or so. It's been 6 years since the last Bloodbath album came out in 2008, when Michael Lackerfeet from Opeth was still in the band. Now, Paradise Lost's Nick Holmes is the lead singer, or lead growler, or whatever, on this album right here. He's the lead vocalist, should I say. And, yeah, let's talk about this here. So, as we know already, and pretty much just to get this point out of the way, because I know lots of people are talking about this fact, Nick Holmes, like I said, is the vocalist on this album, and he brings in a different style compared to Peter and Michael before. And I just want to say this, I love his vocal style quite a bit. Like, he has this very distinctive gurgle that, it has a really nice texture to it. It's nice and juicy. It has a very kind of menacing sound to it whenever you hear it, like, all throughout the album here. It's not necessarily as, like, showy as, like, Michael or Peter's growls were, but, like, it really fits the atmosphere of the album. Like, whenever I think of, like, funerals and stuff, I think of, like, people being buried in the dirt, which this scene kind of reflects in the background right there. And I'm thinking, like, the guy that's doing the vocals on this album, it sounds like he was buried in the mud and was resurrected as, like, a bloodthirsty spawn of Satan that's ready to rip my head off or something like that, which I think really fits the mood of this album that I get. Like, just looking at the inner artwork and all that, I think it really just fits with the overall theme. It gives it this nice, distinctive, dirty, sludgy sort of sound. Indeed, the album, like, musically speaking, seems to be going for a bit more of that old school style. Like, maybe not necessarily as close as, like, their very first couple of albums, but, like, compared to, like, the previous couple of albums, like the Fathomless Mastery, Nightmares Made Flesh, this is actually a bit more closer to the old school style. It's a bit more sludgy. It has a bit more grime and dirt, so to speak, sound-wise. Even though it does have a very good, like, production. Like, everything's crisp and stuff, but it still has that sludgy kind of texture to it. It actually makes me want to go back to the early 1990s. Like, this album's trying to take you back to the early days of death metal when you hear it. Kind of reminds me of, like, Morbid Angel, Autopsy, and Paradise Lost. Duh. I think probably because Nick Holmes is on this album, like, Paradise Lost obviously being a more doom-based band compared to Mike's Opeth and Peter's Hypocrisy, there actually are a bit more, like, slower tracks, so to speak, on this album. Think, like, the title track, Grand Morbid Funeral, which is my personal favorite track, by the way, and Church of Vastitas, sorry about that, sorry if I butchered that. Those songs have a bit more of, like, a slower sound to it. Like, a lot of traditional Bloodbath songs are, like, super fast and stuff like that. You got the super fast blast beats and so forth, but with these songs, they kind of just take their time a little bit and just go with a bit more of a slower melody. Although, granted, Grand Morbid Funeral kind of speeds up at the very end, but for the most part, they're pretty slow songs, so that's just a little sample for you. The musicianship of everyone in the band is also very tight and in sync, obviously. These guys love what they're doing. They've been doing it for many years. I can imagine what they're doing in the studio must be a whole lot of fun. Even on some of, like, the more old-fashioned, old-school kind of thrashers, like a Mental Abortion, tend to sound very tight, so to speak. Like, a lot of those kinds of songs, like, in the style of Mental Abortion, tend to sound a bit clumsy. Like, when you're hearing, like, the old-school, like, 80s thrasher kind of songs, like, on those very early songs, they kind of sound a bit clumsy mix-wise, and it feels like the drums kind of have to catch up with everything else, like when you hear something like Kill 'Em All. But like, even with these kinds of songs, it sounds great. Everybody's having fun. It's very, like, in sync. I have nothing more to say on that. So I really enjoy this album, and I highly recommend that each and every one of you go out and pick this album up. It's already available at FYE and so forth. I just went to FYE today and just picked it up and walked out. So I highly recommend this album. I would give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. This is a very good, very strong, good old-fashioned death metal record that I think everyone who's a metal fan should definitely check it out. Support these guys, support the members of Opeth, Catatonia, and Paradise Lost that helped put this together, and yeah, that's all I really have to say. I apologize if this review's a bit short, but there's really nothing more to say. This is just a very enjoyable, very good, solid slice of death metal. Thank you very much. I'll see ya.